gentlemen, Steve Ballmer!
So I don't know what his thinking was there. That it was a mistake. Spend time with him. I was one of many people who regret ever knowing him.
Microsoft, the biggest software empire on earth, a company with the largest distribution network, unlimited money, and the most recognizable brand. But being at the top doesn't naturally make you immune from failures, and boy do they have some huge duds. But when it comes to one of their biggest failures, the Zune definitely takes the crown. A product that was supposed to dethrone the iPod faded into irrelevance faster than Apple gave up on Apple Intelligence. So, if you're wondering what went wrong with the Zune or never even heard of it before,
what's a Zune?
This is how the iPod killer killed itself. The early 2000s saw the rise in popularity of the MP3 players, and one particular device ruled this segment. The iPod was everywhere. Anyone using it was immediately recognized by the white earbuds, and while there were other decently successful alternatives like the SanDisk and creative models, nothing even came close to challenging the iPod. At its peak, the iPod held more than 70% of the market share, and everyone wanted a slice of that pie, including Microsoft. Now Microsoft was already trying to compete with Apple's iTunes with their MSN Music platform, a platform similar to iTunes that allowed its users to buy and download songs in WMA format along with radio streaming, and was compatible with various portable devices. But in order to compete with the iPod, they needed an iPod of their own. On November 14, 2006, Microsoft launched the Zune, a portable media player designed to compete against the iPod. This first-gen Zune was developed by Microsoft in collaboration with Toshiba, and by collaboration I mean they just rebranded an existing Toshiba device and added in some features. Now Toshiba weren't any strangers to making MP3 players. They already had their gigabit lineup of devices. Interestingly, they were also the ones who made those tiny hard disk drives that were inside the iPods. Instead of building a device from the ground up, Microsoft chose the gigabit as the base for the Zune. This changed with the second and third gen models being complete new designs, moving away from the military grade brick to more modern and sleek design. We'll come to that, but by 2011, when the iPod lineup consisted of 4 different models, Microsoft announced that they would no longer be developing any new Zune devices after just 5 years of life. This was Microsoft accepting defeat at failing to make a dent in the success of the iPod. But if we take a closer look at the Zune, it wasn't actually a bad product. The first gen Zune came with a 30 GB capacity, 3-inch color display, FM radio and Wi-Fi capabilities, features that were considered quite decent for the time. The later HD models offered slightly bigger OLED touchscreens, larger storage, and featured an NVIDIA Tegra processor for a smoother performance. The Wi-Fi feature allowed the Zunes to wirelessly sync with computers and buy music from the Zune marketplace. It also enabled users to share music and photos between other Zune users through Wi-Fi, which they referred to as squirting. The iPod couldn't squirt because it didn't have Wi-Fi. The UI of the Zune was known for its unique, clean and touch-friendly interface, allowing users faster access to media. The Zune's desktop software allowed users to manage their media, and the Smart DJ feature created automatic playlists based on user preferences. The Zune also provided a Zune Pass that was a subscription model which allowed users to stream and download unlimited amounts of songs from the Zune marketplace for a fixed monthly payment. Features which are mostly taken for granted now were offered by the Zune before they became standard. All these features made the Zune a worthy competitor to take on the iPod, but in reality it was quite the opposite. Okay, the Zune got many things right, but it also had many things working against it as well. For instance, the brown color. It looked more like those old TVs made of wood rather than a sleek modern design. In a time when sleek and stylish looking devices were popular, like the Moto Razr for instance, the Zune felt like a brick. And the later models, although much sleeker, felt more like reactions to Apple's designs rather than having any distinct identity. And the marketing of the Zune didn't help them much either. The ads were sporadic and failed to highlight the features of the Zune properly, and the artsy nature of the ads left the target audience confused. This was a sharp contrast to the iPod ads, which were simple, trendy, and had a far more accessible brand image. While the Wi-Fi sharing capabilities were ahead of its time, they just weren't that useful. The digital music scene was still very early, and because of that, the industry labels hadn't fully embraced it as a legitimate revenue system. This resulted in songs shared by Wi-Fi disappearing after 3 days, and while all the other MP3 players, including the iPod, mostly used the MP3 format, the Zune stuck to WMA, which didn't help in increasing its popularity. Despite all the shortcomings, the Zune still could have been successful, if not for their biggest enemy, Microsoft themselves. Here's the truth, the whole iPod killer thing sounded aggressive while marketing, but as an identity it felt insecure. If your whole identity is that we're not the other guy, then you don't have an identity. Microsoft's whole reason to make the Zune was to capture a share of Apple's market rather than make an exceptional product that would last long. Apple integrated their iPods with an entire ecosystem, which resulted in minimal friction across devices. A song bought once showed up everywhere and playlists synced automatically. This was in sharp contrast to the Zune, which was a device attached to Windows and lacked any ecosystem. The Zune team was a small group of people and just a subsidiary of Microsoft's broader product line. They didn't have the backing of the entire company like the iPods did, so a single subsidiary branch of Microsoft just simply wasn't enough to take on the entirety of Apple. The iPod's first release was worldwide with availability in stores from day one, and over the years they maintained this momentum. The Zune's initial release was confined to the US alone, and combined that with the marketing they had, their popularity was similar to people using Zune themselves. Due to this poor popularity, third-party accessories were also scarce compared to the iPod, who had practically unlimited third-party accessories, which played a major factor in their increasing sales as well. Also, Microsoft used point systems instead of actual money transactions, meant as a marketing strategy to encourage more purchases, similar to microtransactions we have today, further hindering the user experience. Compared to this, the iTunes process was simple and straightforward. While Apple at the time showed simplicity, coolness, and rebellion, the Zune just came across as trying hard to catch up, and nothing repels people faster than the smell of desperation. Trust me, I know. Fast forward to 2007, after the launch of the iPhone, it marked the beginning of the smartphone era. It served as the final nail in the coffin for the Zune. And it wasn't only the Zune. The entire segment of MP3 players was wiped out by the smartphones. People no longer felt the need to carry a separate device for listening to music, as phones were now becoming more than capable of doing that. Now the Zune was still lingering around. It didn't have an explosive death or a dramatic ending. It was more of a slow fade away into irrelevance. Microsoft stopped producing new hardware after 2011. Services were shut down in 2015. The Zune still has its cult following with users who swear by it, but it is no more than a footnote in history to a time when gelled hair and low-rise jeans were all the rage. The failure of the Zune makes one thing clear. Success is not guaranteed if the product is good. It's not even guaranteed if the product is better than its rival. We've seen it time and again with the format wars. VHS versus Betamax and Blu-ray versus HD DVD. The winner isn't always chosen because it's better but because of what gets adopted broadly. The Zune had its fair share of shortcomings with its initial launch, but so did the iPod. But the iPod got headroom to improve with each iteration due to lack of any competition. The Zune from day one was battling it out with the industry benchmark. And instead of getting to improve gradually, the Zune had to continuously keep up with the iPod. And in a fight to kill the iPod, it eventually ended up killing itself. So, what do you think about the Zune? Do you think it would have succeeded if not for the iPod? Did you ever own one yourself? Let me know in the comments below. The iPod may have won this war, but it eventually faced its demise as well. If you want to know more, you can watch this video. Hit that like button if you miss MP3 players. Subscribe for more videos like this, and I'll see you in the next one.